chair of the session, Professor Mahendra, my co-panelists and distinguished audience. We'll be presenting a paper, Women Empowerment in India, Status, Achievements and Challenges. As we look at the topic, I think it's a 4-decade-long journey in India, starting from the decade of 1980s, and we come up, I think in the first decade of the 2000s, so many seminars were organized on women empowerment, and we would get a lot of papers on this. So then we thought, what should we be writing on women empowerment, and what is the journey that India has taken, and what is that? Is it only about the measurement of women empowerment? Because most of the papers deal with economic empowerment of women, social empowerment or political empowerment. How should we look at that in a holistic manner, and what is that debate behind that concepts of the women empowerment? So I think we thought that it would be better that we present 3 sections of this. The framework is that the debate of women empowerment, measurement of women empowerment, and achievements and challenges of women empowerment in the context of India. I think this, the debate of women empowerment, I'll spend some time on this before we go to the measurement of women empowerment. I think this concept gained prominence from the decade of 1980s, and where the approaches are like women in development, and gender in development, and gender, environment and development. So these are all the concepts that have been come up, and from these concepts, the measurement, some of these variables for measurement have come up also. I think we felt that it's important to have a roundup of this brief discussion, and then so the WID, we know that it's linked to the modernization theory of the decades of 50s and 70s, and that it gave a beginning to liberal feminist advocacy of integration of women into development, and who viewed that the burden of modernization has been mostly borne by women. And I think the developmentalism, that is the transition to modern state, which is led by the state, by the state, especially in the context of European context where state-led development has happened, that demanded inclusion of women but did not strive for any structural change in the socio-economic systems in which women are to be included in the development. So it also said that to address the harmful effects, policies must be devised to better the conditions of women. But this women's productive work is taken into account, ignoring the reproductive aspect. So this approach does not take into account the reproductive aspects, and women are considered as targets or recipients of such programs, and this approach as relevant to developing countries, because these concepts have come into the measurement aspects of women empowerment also. So this came as, it got expanded as welfare approach, through which women's practical needs, I think there is a distinction between the women's practical needs and strategic needs, where practical needs are related to that of the needs related to livelihoods are met, and it also was expanded as equity approach, which raised the question of gender equality, which had a long-lasting impact on social legislation, civil and political rights, anti-poverty approach, and concentrating on women's productive role through wage work and income generation. So, and also with it's associated with IMF structural adjustment program, that where women were called to respond to debt crisis by participating in newly structured economies. So thus I think it's important to know that the women's practical needs, this approach focused on women's practical needs but does not take into cognizance their strategic needs. So the major, in the Indian context, this came into policy as gender mainstreaming of gender issues in development agencies, and where the WID policy were gender equality and economic efficiency and the aim was emancipation of gender subordination and achieving gender equity, equality and empowerment. And so, however, one point that we need to note is that the difference between practical needs and strategic needs, that is not seen distinctly but as a continuum, does not give much importance to that of the strategic needs. And we know that gender mainstreaming as policy making tool implemented in India and other developing countries, that is mostly aligned to the women in development approach. So most of the Indian policy making also has adopted gender mainstreaming from, I think, the 6th plan onwards and thereafter also. So the other approach, that is women and development approach, it draws from the dependency theory and 70s and 80s advocated by the Marxist feminist theory. And a clear-cut distinction emerged between public and private spaces, where public is based on exchange and hence meant to cover it, and women are assigned to reproduction and consumption, which has use value only and hence is unpaid labor in own farms and self-employed enterprises. I think that's how the distinction between private, public, and public is waged, private is unpaid and unwaged, and that distinction got prominence. So the markets exploit women through household production at the local level, while global capitalism, I think this approach says that the global capitalism exploits women through transnational capital or multinational capital through the markets. And the Marxist and dependency feminists take an uncompromising stand for radical structural transformations. They consider all males as oppressors and all women as their victims, which is because of global patriarchal hierarchy. And so they look at, they hail class analysis can effectively address the women's oppression, but they do not look into the social reproduction aspect of the women. Then the gender and development approach, it rejects the Marxist feminist approach. And this is an analytical framework which emphasizes gender relations in both labor force as well as reproductive sphere. And it focuses not only on women but also on social relations between men and women in the workplace and in home place, making it a holistic approach. As the state assumes a critical role here in designing programs to support women and social reproduction, care and nurture of children. I think the even morning Professor Mahendraji was talking about Claudia Goldman's work on care economy, where I think these are the issues that have come up from the social reproduction and state's intervention into the care and into care work. And the gender and development approach goes thus beyond Marxist analysis and its absorption with production to the area of social reproduction. Therefore, it assigns a definite role for the state in programs to bring equality between the sexes. Then the concept of gender has been taken up by the development planners and practitioners in creating gender analysis frameworks. So we have also gender analysis frameworks in the development literature, where the distribution of household power, how is the household power distributed between men and women? Not only power but also land and resources are distributed between the men and women. Then I think we have this women and environment and development approach, which is basically from the women in development approach, and that is basically drawing on parallels between male control on nature and women, and then the eco-feminist kind of approach is also there, which is put forward by the development economists. And then where they recommend fundamental changes in the development discourse of development to incorporate women's voices in the context of local knowledge systems. I think women-led development, it was talked in the morning also, women-led development kind of issues where gender relations, cultural specificities and political ecology are brought into the mainstream. And also, I think Maria Mais and Vandana Shiva, they have talked about this ecofeminism much, where about the resource management, but it did not concern much about the inequities in ownership of land and resources. And but however, this has ecofeminism has informed and influenced policy also. Gender has been mainstreamed into environment and environment into gender very effectively. I think by the United Nations programs and all also have adopted this approach. Then an important development in this WD approach is the recognition of pivotal role of women in natural resource management and environment protection. By using gender-based analysis in studies on women's roles in agricultural communities and rural households, some of the scholars have effectively avoided instrumentalization of women in environment preservation. But again, in this realm itself, Veena Agarwal has a slightly different position where she says that ensuring women's participation in governance structures in community forestation would really bring a lot of difference there. And women's presence and empowerment in governance structures would make all this difference. So now I move on to, I think this debate, I have not put much slides. When we go to the measurement, I will move on the slides. So the popular frameworks on women empowerment are, all scholars who are working on women empowerment and gender know about Naila Kabir's framework, and where she defined empowerment as the expansion of people's ability to make strategic life decisions in a context where this ability was previously denied to them. I think it is, she further explains that changes in this ability require adjustments in three interdependent dimensions, that is resources, agency and achievement. And resources or preconditions for empowerment include economic factors and human and social resources that enhance the ability to make choices, including institutions such as family, market and community. And the agency, it's a process of exercising choice, is often measured through decision-making power. And Nicola Jones has further elaborated into 4 dimensions of empowerment, that is power within, that is psychological dimension, and power to access to resources. Power with, it is participation in institutions and collective action, and power over, also challenging unequal power structures like informal social institutions of caste, gender-based violence, and social-cultural practices, conditioning the ability of women to respond to opportunities. So I think one can classify that this power to and power with are practical needs, while power over is strategic needs. Now, what are the shades of women empowerment? Because I think in the morning also we were talking about the knowledge that emerged in the South, North and South. There is a kind of dichotomy in the sense. So all these concepts of women empowerment have been developed by the feminists in the North, while Southern kind of feminists, they have raised the issue of caste, and because Northern feminists have ignored the concepts of race and class. So Southern feminists have raised this, said that it is all women are not homogeneous, and there is a class, there is a race among the women also. And then I think they have, Geeta Sen and Karen Brown, they have popularized the concept of empowerment, which emphasizes political consciousness raising, popular education and employment. I think these 3 are the key words in their kind of approach that they have popularized it. I think there is also kind of resistance from the African and Latin American scholars who against this northern kind of views on women empowerment, where they said that all struggles against nationalism, nationalistic struggles also consisted about, also incorporated struggles against the sexual norms and male-dominated unions, and demanded social and economic rights, and protested against labor discrimination and all this. So nationalistic movement in one sense has given rise to these kind of gender movements also. And so I think their question also did gender division of labor as a yardstick to assess women's status in the southern countries by both liberal and left-wing feminists. And I think as a result of this, issues like identity, representation, indigenous knowledge and political action need to be part of right and for practical purposes. So therefore I think this framework, that is resources, agency and achievements framework, is integral to the broad development agenda and equal access to health, education, credit, land, livelihoods and employment opportunities, and all these are rest on the premise of equality. So the measurement of women's empowerment, I think we have used this as we all know that it's a baseline and monitor the progress of SDG 5, and also explicitly measuring aspects of indicators, dimensions and goals, and also the indicators reflect differential economic, social, political, cultural and historical structures, because the structures are different. And this is Kabir's empowerment framework of this has been used. And the domain of agency or the process of making choices is often assessed through decision making power. So it's the resources and the agency which will result in some outcome, and this outcome is defined in by the extent of which potential is realized and it holds a transformative power. And so this is the framework that we have used: resources, agency, resulting in the achievement. Achievement, we have tried to link resources plus agency would give us the women empowerment index, and which would be linked to the achievement in the terms of children's nutrition and women's own health. So these are the linkages between the women empowerment and achievement in terms of child nutrition and women's health. So this women empowerment index, I think we try to take for 3 points of time. So to look at the trend in the case of India, and using unit data from 3 rounds of NFHS, 4, 5, 6, 15, 16 and 19 to 21. And also we have 2 categories of women, that is currently married women and all women. So for these 2 categories of women, we try to look at that and see what are the differences that are there. And variables representing within these 3 dimensions have been identified, and this index explored across different categories like rural and urban, social categories, and also economic classes, and these are the categories. And as I said, the women empowerment index and outcome relationship has been explored. So data is taken for the women aged 15 to 49, and the questions on household relationship and domestic violence among other variables posed to, currently married women, there are certain other additional kind of questions that are there. So this is for computed for all women and currently married women. I think currently married women constitute around 70% of all women, total women surveyed by the NFHS. Then measuring women's empowerment, that is scores were assigned to identified indicators, and then an index was calculated, and the dimension index, actually, that is human resources dimension index, and then the economic dimension index and cultural dimension index, which tells about the agency. So these dimension indices were taken, and then the average score of all the indicators within this dimension were taken, and women empowerment index is computed as the average of dimension indices. Equal weights have been assigned to all indicators, and with this women empowerment index, the values we have categorized into the low, medium and high, and trying to look at what is the percentage of women falling in each range of this women empowerment index, and how this is connected to that of the outcomes that are there. Then I think this shows for the all women and currently married women, and all 3 dimensions: human resources, economic status and cultural, and also currently married women. So what is that we find from this kind of an analysis is that of all women, I think 25% belong to never in union. I think we have a kind of currently married or currently in union is 70%, and 25% is never in union. And if we look at the women empowerment index, it remains consistent between all women and currently married women with value is 0.52 and 0.52. It's almost the same in 19 to 21. That is the latest round. Then the human resources index is higher among all women in comparison to currently married women due to lower educational levels of education attainment among the ladies. So it was found that among the currently married women, education attainment is less. So maybe I think at the end we try to look at the concluding point emerging from this. Maybe marriage as an institution should give more space to women to get educated or to get employment. That was one emerging point that has come up from this analysis. So this was found more like completed secondary and higher levels of education, and also the difference between currently married and all women was higher. Similarly, this is the women who had completed secondary and higher level is 33% among those who were never in union, and only 7% of those who were formerly in union. So those who are maybe not at all associated with any kind of marriage or never in union, they attained higher educational attainments compared to that of other categories that are there. Then the index value for the economic dimension is lower than that of other dimensions. This is very important. For the human resources, even compared to the human resources, economic dimension index is lower for all categories of, both categories of currently married and all women. But the cultural dimension index was found to be higher. At the cultural dimension index, what are the variables that went into it is about perceptions about domestic violence, and then whether they could go out, all from the NFHS variables. So that has been rising over a period of time across all three time periods. Then I think it has shown a gradual improvement in all dimensions except for the human resource index. And there's a declining trend in human resource index for both categories, that is women and currently married women. And economic dimension index declined between 5-15 but showed improvement over 15 and 19. So these are the findings which...
Wait, 5 minutes more?
Yes, yes. So this, we also looked at what is the incidence of women in different categories of women empowerment, and human resource, economic status, and cultural, and all this. And this we found that around 38% of all women and 36% of currently married women fall into the bottom category of that is low women empowerment in the case of human resources. So most and all this, they are showing that it is the bottom kind of groups that are there. And across states also we have made some kind of analysis where what is the movement of states across these three time periods. There are some states where they are stagnantly remaining in the low kind of bracket that are there. I think the details are there in the paper. Then if you link the women empowerment to the nutritional status and current attendance status of children also, this shows by and large that the stunting, wasting, and undernutrition, these are more related to that of the women falling with having low kind of range of empowerment that's there. So these are some of the outcomes that is linking to the children outcomes that are there. Similarly, women's empowerment and women's health also, it is that they are also linked to that of low empowerment range. More of them are into thin women, and also their anemia categories, anemia levels are also low. So, but one contradictory kind of result has been there because it shows a mixed pattern. As empowerment increases, obesity also has been increasing. So that is one mixed kind of pattern that is there. And we try to link to human, economic, human, and gender development also, where human development and gender development are more related to child development, of course. And I'll quickly take only 5 minutes to wind up, and achievements and challenges of women empowerment. I think there's a state-led social mobilization program has been taken up in the early 2000s, and Andhra Pradesh was in Andhra Pradesh witnessed it. And also we have seen that there are some benefits, because this women empowerment project has been taken not only to give benefits to women within the household, but also through that it acts as a tool to achieve some of the other larger goals that are there. Larger goals to address household poverty, as well as children's needs, and as well as like achieving some of the SDG goals and environment protection and all this. So in this, some of these major programs that are there like SDG groups and Kutumbashree, if you look at these models and how their performance is and what are the kind of how these have been performed and achievements in terms of economic, social and political, we can find that Kutumbashree is more efficient in the sense Kutumbashree has resulted in women entering into political processes and social processes also, but AP model has resulted more in kind of economic empowerment. That is because of Kutumbashree also there is a local decentralization that is there. So decentralization is there and women's self-help group Kutumbashree is there, I think it worked very successfully compared to other kind of scenarios in Andhra Pradesh or other states also. Regarding political participation also, we know that it is almost like a maximum of 14% representation is there in the Lok Sabha, and then I think this Professor Harmantrao has has commented that if this is the pace, it would take 100 years for women to reach 33% of representation in the legislature. But maybe a ray of hope is there where recent parliament decision is there to reserve 33% of seats to the women. So what is that conclusion that we came up with is that we conclude that women empowerment in India is a paternalistic model, and where it's a household is not a conflict but a cooperative, and then it's through that the gains of empowerment should be are kind of achieved, and then the collective empowerment has not happened actually, because collective empowerment leading to transformative gender relations, that is strategic or second level, this is yet to happen. And political empowerment is the key for gains for women, but this is also, as I said, it is very at a low level. And the state, I think state-led kind of policy interventions or implementation of legal rights and all, that also should be taking place. And there is a need for focused interventions on education, employment and political empowerment, which are the depressive factors of women's empowerment. I think, thank you and
Thank you.